Alright, so I might end up doing something different for Season 2's, ranking, but for this one, I think I'm just going to freeball it and just sort of go over my 4 criteria that I've arbitrarily picked to be part of my objective ranking. So the video is going to be split into 2 parts. The first part is going to be the objective ranking, where I try to look at it as critically as possible and ignore my feelings towards it, and the ranking criteria for that is going to be how well are the main 6 treated? Are their characters insulted? Do they act out of character? Does it make sense for them to behave the way they do? That sort of thing. Is the conflict sensible? Is there any reason for this conflict to be happening, or is it just something to push the plot forward? Do the decisions the characters make in the story and conflict make sense? Or are they just acting out of character? It's very similar to the first part, but the first part is more of like, are they being represented properly? Whereas this one is, are they smart? Well, not like super smart, but like, is there some form of follow through one can make for their decisions? And the last one is the least impactful of the criteria, which is just, is there good music, or is there like a strong emotional core to the episode? There's not going to be a lot of those for season 1, so I don't think that's even really going to come into play, but just for the sake of it. Other than that, the second part of the episode will be my subjective ranking, which is, I'm throwing all objective criteria out of the side, and I'm just going with what episodes make me feel the best. Whether that's happy feelings, sad feelings, strong feelings, or just anything like that. Also, the rankings for some of the episodes have changed from what they were at the end of the episode that they were a part of. So like the ranking for episode 3 or 4 was like a 3 or 4, but it might be different for the ranking. I don't think it is, but some episodes have had vastly different rankings for the objective portion and even the subjective portion, because feelings are complicated is the best way I can put it. I will note what I gave it in the episode alongside with what its new ranking currently is. Aside from that, that should be enough preamble, so let's just get into the list, starting with number 26. Starting off from episode 26, we have Look Before You Sleep, surprising no one, coming in with a 1 out of 10. This is by far the worst episode of season 1. Applejack and Rarity are treated absolutely horribly, and Twilight is just sort of silently suffering the entire time. She does get her good reversal at the very end of the episode, but they had to completely butcher the character of Rarity and Applejack for this episode to make any sense whatsoever. The conflict, complete nonsense. They try to make it something like a pompous versus practical type of debate, but it ends up just being Applejack is a jerk and extremely rude and gross, and Rarity is just clean and nice and polite. Like, it's not a good conflict. They made no attempt to actually make it make sense because they just wanted to teach the lesson they were trying to teach, which is really upsetting. Same thing with the character decisions. They make absolutely no sense. Rarity is literally just generosity incarnate, but Applejack calls her out for not being generous for just because her feelings are slightly upset, even though it's never really stopped her before in other situations, such as one of the better episodes with Suitor for Success, where she is quite overworked and stressed and is still being as nice and polite and thoughtful as possible. So it's not a great look. There are strong emotions, but they're all flippin' terrible and inconsistent, so not a good thing. And there is no music in the episode, so there's nothing to help salvage it there. All in all, just a really bad episode. So yeah, that'll be our 26th ranked episode, Look Before You Sleep. On to number 25. Coming in at number 25 is Ticketmaster with a 2 out of 10, which I think is actually 1 lower than its original score, which was a 3 out of 10. The reason for this being is because I moved Bridal Gossip down. I needed to move Ticketmaster down as well, because there's no way Bridal Gossip is worse than Ticketmaster, because Ticketmaster doesn't have the positive of Zecora and Apple Bloom. It's just the negatives of the main 6 being written horribly, outside of Twilight, obviously. And Spike also is treated well, but that's not as impactful as Zecora, at least. Having a new character introduced positively is better than having characters behave the way they're supposed to, with Twilight and Spike being positive. How are the main 6 treated? Absolutely horribly. Every single one of them is an insensitive douche who actively stalk and harass their supposed friend. Granted, this is very early in their friendship. They pretty much all just met, but that arguably makes it worse, because why are you harassing and stalking someone who you just met and just tried to start making friends with? Absolute nonsense. Is the conflict sensible? Everyone wants the ticket. No, it's Twilight's ticket. She should have put her foot down way earlier, but she did, but then she put her foot in her mouth and was like, oh, I'll just give it to whoever has the best reason. Twilight, you gotta level. We gotta level with each other. That was never gonna happen. You were never gonna figure that out. Not to mention that the only pony that actually got asked to go was Applejack, and then Applejack got shafted the entire time by everyone else trying to get in on it. And of course, again, this conflict could be easily resolved by just telling Celestia, like they do at the end of the episode, where it's just like, oh, I can't accept this. Celestia, I have too many friends. I can't just choose one. And then boom, conflict over. But again, we have to learn the lesson. It's part of the whole show program. There wouldn't be a plot without it. I get it, but it doesn't make it good. Character decisions making sense. Almost for Twilight. Like I said, she almost got there. She had a couple of good points where she put her foot down, but then put her hoof in her mouth. Yeah, not great. All the other character decisions make absolutely zero sense. Oh, I want to go to this big event. Let me harass and annoy the hell out of the person I'm trying to get it from. That'll go really well. Let me stalk them obnoxiously and then admit to it to their face. Let me torture them by hovering the thing they desire most in front of their face. Absolute nonsense. Not really a lot of strong emotions or good music. There are some decent emotions with Twilight, but none of them good because the rest of the characters are so bad that her feeling that way just makes sense. It's not a deep emotional exploration of what they're feeling and how they can resolve those feelings. It's just everyone's a jerk and then Twilight has a mental breakdown. So yeah, really bad. That's episode 25, Ticketmaster. Not a whole lot else to say about this episode. It's really not good. Coming in at 24 is our second rank change from the official episodes, with Bridal Gossip at a 2 out of 10. Only slightly edging out Ticketmaster. Entirely because of Sakura, obviously, which is unfortunate because I really do like Sakura. But that's subjective, and even though Sakura is great, every one of the main six, except for Twilight a little bit, was completely bastardized in this episode. All of them are acting unapologetically racist and offensive for no real reason, and it's most out of character for Pinky, because Pinky is quite literally trying to make friends with everyone. Anyway, so yeah, the main six are all treated terribly. The conflict is everyone's racist towards Sakura. Does that make sense? No, not really. Is that what the episode's trying to make us understand, so that way they can tell us it's bad? Yes. Does it make sense that any of the main six would ever think this way? No. It's utter nonsense. Rainbow Dash's childhood best friend is a goddamn griffin. Completely different species. No problem whatsoever. But this slightly different horse, nope, really weird. That's a slightly sus equine. Better not be happy with it. Character decisions making sense. Twilight's makes sense a little bit, but she even in the beginning of the episode does have those issues with not reading books that she should to get answers because she doesn't fully trust those books. But she does have proper skepticism when trying to understand Sakura, and then the series of events cavalcade out into making her into another racist. Apple Bloom, thankfully, is one of the best written characters in that episode, which isn't saying a lot given how bad everyone else is, but that's not really enough to save the episode. Strong emotions or good music? Not really. It's just a bunch of people being jerks, and that's about it. Sakura's great, learning about her culture is great, everyone calling her culture creepy and spooky and evil was not great, so yeah, 2 out of 10. It was a 6 out of 10, but that was mostly my personal feelings towards Sakura being so high. Yeah. Alright, one last thing that I forgot. The entire conflict of the episode could have been solved by just talking to Sakura, and that was the biggest problem, is the solution to the conflict was so absolutely nothing, and it could have all been avoided very easily, which made it even more annoying. Anyway, moving on to number 23. Coming in at 23 is Applebuck season. How are the main six treated? Well, Applejack is treated horribly, but everyone else is treated pretty normally, and there's not a lot to say wrong about them. Twilight's even supportive and trying to help Applejack out, so that's good for her. But Applejack is, oh man, it's probably not the worst she's ever acted. I think she might have been slightly worse than Ticketmaster and Look Before You Sleep, but she's pretty bad. The level of stubbornness and arrogance is just unreal. She's not even listening to Big Mac, who is equally as experienced in what she's trying to accomplish. The conflict is pretty much just Applejack being stubborn, which it is a character trait they established for her, so it does make some amount of sense. It just feels like it's maybe being played up too far. And the character decisions, everyone but Twilight not doing great on that front, as most of them aren't paying attention to the fact that Applejack is experiencing severe symptoms of hysteria, delirium, overwork, overtired, lack of sleep, whatever you can flip and think of. So the fact that they didn't pay attention and notice, but Twilight did, is a little lackluster. So their decision to, keep doing the things they plan to do with her instead of being like, hey, let's not worry about it until you get better, or hey, how about maybe we help you instead? Whatever. No music, no real emotions. This episode is just a whole lot of bad. Some of the more interesting aspects are Twilight's weird use of magic, but there is no canon reason for her to be doing that. In my subjective ranking, I'll be talking about my own headcanon for it, which is what makes me think it's maybe slightly better. Maybe not a point increase better, but just a slightly better episode than I originally think. But no, this is a very lackluster one. A bastardization of a character always leads to a score below 5, pretty much, outside of episodes that have every other aspect going for it to the umpth degree. So yeah, let's move on to number 22. And at number 22, we have Over a Barrel, the colonization episode, taking a really big, serious issue and then not really dealing with it at all, just sort of using it as a framework for a completely unrelated episode. How are the main six treated? They're all fine. Applejack and Rainbow Dash's beef makes sense, but their decision in escalating it does not. Rainbow Dash obviously learns some important stuff that formulate her opinion, as well as Applejack doing the same. Applejack thinking of her family, and Rainbow Dash thinking thinking of the people that she met and helped her and helped Spike and all that stuff. But yeah, so the main six are treated relatively fine with big asterisks next to Applejack and Rainbow Dash. Is the conflict sensible? No, not even a little bit, because the conflict is entirely based on Applejack and Rainbow Dash's failure to communicate. Because Brayburn and Little Strongheart were both very willing to communicate and were very down to be like, oh yeah, that would be very helpful to actually be able to talk things through and work out to a solution. But Applejack and Rainbow Dash just obliterated that and turned it into effectively a civil war. Or no, civil war would be the same faction. So just a race war, I guess. Which I don't know which one would be worse, to be honest. Might be the worst thing that any of the main six do for a long time. Do the character decisions make sense? No. Their thoughts and beliefs make a little bit of sense because they have different experiences that lead them to their perspectives, but their decisions to just escalate doesn't really make sense. And I think this comes back to the Rainbow Dash Applejack rivalry type of thing where they each have to be right, which is another reason why I hate the conflict, because not only is it just asinine and uninteresting, but it actively makes the world worse, which is not something you can say to a lot of rivalries. Strong emotions, good music? Not really. There's nothing really going on there. Other than that, Little Strongheart's fun. Brayburn was cool to meet. I like his personality. I like the world building of seeing Appaloosa, although I think the geographical location they picked for it is absolutely incompetent decision making. And yes, I did realize that there was a river there, but still, they said themselves that it is extremely infertile land, and the only fertile land belongs to other people. And granted, I'm not entirely positive, but I believe Native American beliefs rely on no one owns the land. We tend and cultivate the land and protect it. So it's just really bad. The fact that the settlers don't really make compromise and instead are just sort of forced into what the natives want is technically good, but it also makes you question why they choose to stay there in the first place. They really should have just gone elsewhere. Anyway, moving on to number 21. And number 21 is Owl's Well That Ends Well with a 4 out of 10. This is just a nothing burger of an episode. If you've watched the episode I've made, you know there's just nothing here. How are the main six treated? Fine. They're all fine. Twilight's a little overbearing, but she has reason to properly be upset with Spike. Maybe not initially, not with like the burning of the book, because come on, you should know that's going to happen. But she's not mad at him for burning the book. She's mad at him for lying about burning the book. So it's still reasonable. Spike being a kid and getting upset over the owl, maybe taking his job, makes a little bit of sense, but then thinking he's going to be disowned is honestly also reasonable. It's obviously illogical nonsense, but it's also a kid whose overactive imagination is playing tricks on him. Is the conflict sensible? Not really. It's a kid having a conflict with an animal, so obviously there's no real sense to it. It's just a bunch of people it's just Spike overthinking everything, and then Owlish is just being like, who? Yeah. Do character decisions make sense? Unfortunately, yes. Pretty much all of the character decisions make sense, even if I don't like them. Spike is just making decisions that a kid would make in those situations. Not a smart kid, but a kid. There are strong emotions or good music. There's some pretty decently strong emotions with Spike. If it wasn't just for the complete lack of anything to latch onto in this episode, like there's no good conflict, there's no good comedy, there's no good anything. It's just a series of events playing out scene by scene, which you might be like, that's everything. I'm like, yeah, but there's nothing else here. That's literally all it is. I just want to move on. Let's move to number 20. Coming in at rank number 20 is Fall Weather Friends, which I could rank lower because of how obnoxious Applejack and Rainbow are throughout the entire episode, but they're the only ones treated even remotely poorly, and we get a bunch of other good stuff from everyone else. Twilight does some nice stuff. Celestia shows up and is very well characterized throughout the entire thing. Sure, there's a lot of continuity errors and like mess ups in their art and backgrounding, but that's whatever. They do that in every episode, so it's not like it's a major negative compared to the other episodes where they either butcher the characters to the point of just straight up mischaracterization and not understanding how to write them, and other episodes where it's just everyone is bad. This one only has 2 people being bad. So yeah, it's also less egregious than Over a Barrel and less of a nothing sandwich than Owl's Well That Ends Well, because at least there's an actual conflict even if it's not a good one. So yeah, how are the main 6 treated? Everyone but the prominent duo are fine. Prominent duo are treated pretty badly, but not unforgivably badly. Rainbow's close. Rainbow's very close to being unforgivably bad, but it's relatively low stakes, so I don't feel like it's that big a deal compared to Over a Barrel. Is the conflict sensible? I know for a fact that people like this exist in reality, so I guess it unfortunately makes a little bit of sense. I don't necessarily think it makes sense for these two, but we're in season 1, so we haven't had a full proper characterization. But as I said in the Fall with Her Friends episode, it was somewhat disloyal of Rainbow to betray the trust of pretty much everyone, which is a pretty big bummer. Character decisions making sense? Not really. For Applejack, kind of, because like she's very flip-floppy, which is a mix of her stubbornness and her pride, and her constantly trying to fight between being nice and being the best. I don't know, it doesn't seem like it's great. No strong emotions or good music, so just sitting there at a 4 out of 10. It could probably be a 3, but I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as Applebuck Season or Over a Barrel. It might be slightly worse than Owl's Well That Ends Well, but Owl's Well That Ends Well is just so boring. At least this one garners some emotion out of me of upset. Well, Owl's Well That Ends Well doesn't even garner anything. It doesn't garner any emotion whatsoever. So yeah, that'll be number 20. We'll move on to number 19. And with number 19, we have Dragon Shy, an episode that I do enjoy, but definitely think is flawed, with most of the negatives I have for it coming from Rainbow just arbitrarily seeming to hate everything Fluttershy does in the entire episode, with the only thing that you could really blame Fluttershy for being the whole avalanche thing, which was more of a rock slide because an avalanche involves snow, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, how are the main 6 treated? Twilight is a little bit too obsessed on the task at hand, but she has already been shown to be obsessive, so it's not really a mischaracterization. It's just being dialed up for the sake of the episode. I don't think Applejack actually is characterized really well if I think about it. She just immediately tries to help Fluttershy, constantly makes sacrifices to help her, helps everyone out all the time. Rainbow, despite being characterized relatively poorly towards Fluttershy, does save Twilight's life, so that's good. Pinkie doesn't really do a lot, and neither does Rarity. They're just sort of hanging out to vibe with everyone. They're mainly there for comedic effect, and they play foils to each other, which is really fun, because we don't get to see that pairing very often, and it was good to see. Made it very fun. Is the conflict sensible? Honestly, no. You might be thinking, well, why not? It makes perfect sense. They're gonna go solve this problem. The thing is, the problem is an extremely terrifying dragon that's fully grown and potentially hostile, and Celestia sends 6 unexperienced young adults to deal with it instead of dealing with it herself, or sending Luna, or her royal guard, or, you know, anyone qualified to handle a potentially fully grown hostile dragon. The character decisions make sense. Outside of Rainbow's weird hostility, yeah, even Fluttershy screwing things up makes sense because she's so manic and anxious at the situation. Strong emotions are good music. Fluttershy has a crash out. That's some strong emotion, but otherwise not really. Honestly, I don't think I have a lot more to say about this episode. I don't mind it. I think it's decent, but I do think it's pretty flawed, so I have to rank it pretty low. And that was number 19. And moving on to 18, the first of the average episodes. Number 18 being The Swarm of the Century. Another episode that I'm pretty whatever on. Pinkie isn't characterized the greatest with how obtuse she's being with how to handle the situation, because she obviously and clearly knew how to solve the problem, but a mixture of her not properly communicating that while also her being Pinkie and no one taking her seriously leads to a whole lot of problems, because there is a huge characterization problem with the main 6 where everyone treats Pinkie like an idiot or a nuisance when she is regularly shown to be one of the most intelligent characters. Maybe not from a straight up book smarts perspective, but from a common sense, practicality, organizational standpoint. Like, we've seen her basement. She is not slow or stupid. She is a genius in certain aspects. Anyway, how are the main 6 treated? Fluttershy has her big oopsie, which is definitely a big oopsie, but it is relatively in character. All of the other characters are relatively short-tempered and frantic, which makes sense because it is a pretty high damage situation, so I'm not entirely holding that against them. And Pinkie is being dialed up to 11 in her shenaniganry and not necessarily being very helpful, but that is relatively consistent for her, even if I don't always like it. Do character decisions make sense? Kind of, yeah. Fluttershy's is a bit iffy with her deciding to keep the threat around, but it is an animal and one that she had never seen before, so her wanting to keep one around to see it more does track. There is a sense of logic there, even if it was really, really, really dumb. Honestly, I would argue that of the main 6, Fluttershy might be the actual dumbest, only potentially losing out to Rainbow. And even then, Rainbow's not that dumb. She's just got a bit of a common sense problem. She's very much a action first, think later type, which is her problem. Is the conflict sensible? It's a random creature that like attacked the city because it's cute and Fluttershy fell for it. So yeah, no. Everything that leads to the problem does make sense. Everything that leads up to it. And yeah, is there any strong emotion to good music? Not really. Nothing to go off of there. So yeah, I don't think I have anything else to go for Swarm of the Century. That was 18. Moving on to number 17. And with number 17, we're coming into The Dog and Pony Show, which is another average episode that, while funny and entertaining, has so many problems. Again, another episode that could be rated lower, but there was enough stuff that I didn't mind in it. The biggest problems in the episode is Twilight's complete and utter brain damage and not understanding that she is a magical unicorn, combined with the fact that they just commit so much to the episode to some Spike nonsense. And there can be good Spike content. This is not it. This is not this good Spike content. Him fantasizing about something that never happened in an attempt for it to be funny, I'm assuming, is not good Spike content. But outside of Spike, how are the main six treated? Other than Twilight, they're all fine. Pinkie and Fluttershy don't really do anything. Although, to be honest, most of them don't do anything other than Rainbow, who actually helps with like the conflict. And I guess Applejack helps a little bit with the conflict. But for the most part, outside of their initial scuffle with the dogs, no one does anything other than Twilight and Spike. Is the conflict sensible? No. It makes sense that the Diamond Dogs would take Rarity. That makes sense. But everyone's reaction to that, outside of Spike, is just so blasé and not caring. Someone was just kidnapped. Why the hell are you guys acting so nonchalant about all of this? They don't rush. They just sort of like they rush to where the dogs are, then they scuffle, and then they just calmly jump down and then walk and then slide and then walk and don't really seem to have any rush about them or concern. There's like, oh no, maybe she's dirty, not, oh no, is she hurt? Ugh. Do the character decisions make sense outside of Twilight? Yeah. Rarity just styles on everyone with her 300 IQ plays, and the Diamond Dogs all have, other than not getting like aggressive, they make relatively normal decisions that you expect from a stupid villain. Strong emotions or good music? No, not at all. So yeah, other than the Rarity stuff, everything else was either middling or annoying. It could be rated lower, but I think it's not that offensive. The most offensive thing in the episode is just Twilight being a dumbus, and that happens too much in season 1. So yeah, that's number 17, Dog and Pony Show. On to number 16. With 16, we have another average episode, The Call of the Cutie, our CMC introduction, which started everyone being mad at me for not liking the CMC. I'm sorry. I have a newfound respect for them, but I still don't find them like entertaining or anything. As for the episode itself, it doesn't really have anything to do with the main six, so instead of how are the main six treated, let's go with how are the CMC treated. They're all written pretty well, as kid characters anyway. Apple Bloom is annoyingly whiny, and we don't really get to see the other two until the end of the episode, but those two are pretty standard characters. They don't really establish very many interesting things about them. Scootaloo establishes that she's very confrontational, and Sweetie Belle, I don't think actually does anything to establish herself, if I'm being real, which is a little disappointing, but she gets really good development in another episode on the list with Stairmaster. So, is the conflict sensible? Yeah, no, it all tracks. You have bratty kids that are being jerks and bullies, and then the characters lash out and are like, oh no, I need to do something to prove I'm better than this, and blah blah blah. And it's very much a playground type of conflict, so it all is pretty simple to write and makes all of their actions and decisions make sense. The fact that Apple Bloom went to her sister for help immediately instead of trying to do things on her own shows how much trust she has in Applejack, which is good. Twist could definitely have been a more interesting character and could have been handled a lot better in the future, because in this episode she comes across as a pretty decent friend up until the party, where she just doesn't say a single word despite the fact that her so-called friend is being harassed. So yeah, no strong emotions or good music either, and that's about it. I don't have a lot to say about Call of the Cuties. It's just an episode, and that's why it's in the middle of the list at 16, because it just doesn't really do anything. Moving on to number 15. Coming in at number 15 and being the last of the completely average episodes is the Sonic Rain Boom. This episode, there are so many things that bother me about it, but I can't hold that against the episode critically, because there are technically ways to weasel around the logic, but there's also all the problems with Rarity as well on top of it. But this is one of the best Rainbow Dash episodes, because we don't get a lot of actual character from Rainbow Dash in most episodes. She's usually just brazen and headstrong, but here she's displaying weakness, she's lacking in her usual confidence, she's showing a more vulnerable side of herself, which makes it really good to watch. But Rarity sort of flubs that, even Fluttershy flubs that a little bit, and the other three are just sort of non-characters who are just there to support their friend, which is good enough. So yeah, how are the main six treated? Rainbow Dash is treated immensely well. This is one of her best performing episodes. She shows so much good character work and development, showing various diverse sides of her personality that make sense and don't just clash with her existing personality. Rarity goes from being an absolute baller for the first like 5 minutes of the episode to being all of her negative traits dialed up to 11 and being a piece of crap. Twilight just is like, I'm going to use this extremely risky and dangerous spell that lasts for an extended period of time, so if I F up, there's, lasting consequences to it. And I just found a completely easy, non-invasive spell that can do the job that this other more dangerous spell did, which was not great. Fluttershy is super supportive and trying to help Rainbow at all junctions of this entire episode. However, she does reveal the secret that Rainbow Dash was trying to keep and the whole lacking confidence thing and not being able to perform the Rain Boom anymore. Is the conflict sensible? No. Rarity acts incredibly out of character here. Like, she does not act this vain more than 5 times in the series, I want to say. Like, this is near the peak of how vain she can get. It's insane to me. Which wouldn't be the biggest criticism, as it's just them dialing up a trait to 11 for an episode to happen. However, she starts the episode perfectly. She's the one who instigates them trying to help Rainbow, which is what makes this such an obnoxious heel turn. And the only reason I'm not rating this lower is because of how absolutely immaculate Rainbow is in this episode. She's at her least annoying and most engaging in this one, so it's hard to rate it much lower despite how bad they treat Rarity, because they don't treat any of the main 6 that bad. Twilight is a bit risky with her magic and irresponsible, but she's still learning. We can put that to the side. Pinkie doesn't really do anything, but she gets them the balloon, I think. Applejack just sort of exists. Pinkie does get some really good facial expressions, and she cheers for her friend constantly. But the Sonic Rain Boom continuity is more of a nitpick from me than an actual criticism of the episode, because having so many characters providing just straight up conflicting information about it drives me up a wall. Oh, it's never been done before. Oh, but we know it's been done by a Pegasi like Rainbow Dash before, or it's been conceptualized by one, but no one ever actually says that specifically. If they said it was conceptualized, I wouldn't have any problems with it. But no, they just said it was straight up never done before, but they said that it could be done by someone like Rainbow, so it's a theory? It's just so imprecise of a statement. Everyone is conflicting with one another. I can just ignore the bully statements and it still doesn't really make a lot of sense. Anyway, I'm going overboard with this part. Again, this is more of a nitpick on my part that just bothers me. It isn't as big a deal as I make it out to be, and that's the only reason the episode is as high ranked as it is. I think it's actually rated lower on my subjective list when we get to it. I don't actually remember though. We'll look later. So strong emotion, good music. There's some pretty good emotion from Rainbow, especially when trying to save Rarity at the end, so it's not terrible. But yeah, that's I'm going to go on too long if I keep going here. So that was number 15, Sonic Rain Boom. Moving on to number 14. Our first of the above average episodes is Stairmaster at number 14. Stairmaster is a fun episode. It's the first episode that helped me recontextualize my thoughts on the CMC, as well as providing a new light for them, but also demonstrating a lot of their traits that made me not like them in the first place, with how hostile they seem to be towards Fluttershy, as well as the maliciousness they displayed. Fluttershy is treated decent in this episode. She doesn't really do a lot, if we're being honest, up until the end, but Fluttershy at the end, though, is an absolute baller. One of her best moments, not necessarily one of her best episodes, because her risking bodily harm to save 3 fillies is definitely way up there on lists of things Fluttershy does as an individual. Obviously, she helps the group with a lot of the more world-savey type of deal things, but this is just a her episode where she gets to shine, and she does a really good job of that. How are the main 6 treated? Fluttershy is treated very well. How are the CMC treated? They're treated accurately. I still don't like how they behave. Obviously, it is very accurate, hence why I can't dock points for it, but yeah. Is the conflict sensible? Yeah, it's Fluttershy putting up with annoying children, and there's a monster on the loose, so everything tracks. The decisions they make are all relatively reasonable, although it is funny that Fluttershy thought she could play the quiet game with a bunch of children. Do character decisions make sense? For the most part, yeah, I think I already said that. Strong emotions are good music. The Hush Now, Quiet Now song is funny, but it's not necessarily good. I think this is going to be a short one. This section is going to be relatively short. I do really enjoy the ending, but beyond that, this is just sort of it's a CMC episode. There's no real negatives about it, but there's only a few positives, hence why it's only slightly above average. So yeah, that's Stairmaster at number 14. On to number 13. Coming in at number 13 is an episode that has very quickly risen through the ranks of episodes I actually enjoy, which is baffling. This used to be a very low rated episode for me, but now I both critically and personally think it's a really good one, with Griffin Brushoff. Gilda is a decent antagonist, which is basically all I can really say about her. The episode really does engage a lot with Pinkie's personality, showing us a lot of what she's about, and handles her pretty well. She has all of her usual traits going on, where she doesn't really pay attention to the context of everything, but she does end up being right in the end, and no one trusts her for it because everyone treats Pinkie horribly. Anyway, how are the main 6 treated? Rainbow is treated fine, Pinkie is treated fine, not by the others, but by the show itself. Twilight's treated relatively bad because she just completely brushes off Pinkie. Griffin brush off, I just realized that. That's funny. I don't actually know what Fluttershy or Rarity even do in this episode, if anything. The fact that I can't remember that means it probably wasn't too important. I guess Fluttershy gets harassed by Gilda, and, Gilda courts death with that action. But other than that, I like how kind Fluttershy is. There's not a lot to go on there. Is the conflict sensible? Yeah, no. This is a very good classic deal with a bully episode. Gilda tries to be deceitful and play up to her childhood friend, but eventually gets exposed as the hateful little, that she is. Do character decisions make sense? Pinkie does what she can to make everyone aware, but again, they don't really listen to her. Fluttershy does because Fluttershy experienced it firsthand, but everyone else just sort of brushes her off. Now that I've realized that, it makes a whole lot of sense. Gilda is just a jerk, so most of her decisions can be whatever. Rainbow not really noticing is fine because Gilda's obviously not letting it on. During the actual party, most of Gilda's decisions are sensical to an extent, although her trusting Pinkie when Pinkie points things out to her is just her being dumb, I guess. It's not really a questionable decision, it's just she's being dumb. Strong emotions, good music. There are some really good emotion towards the end of the episode with how everyone stands up to Gilda, so that's good. That's got going for it. Other than that, I don't think there's anything else. Just a nice, above average, enjoyable episode. So yeah, that is number 13. Moving on to number 12. Coming in at number 12 is Boast Busters, our Trixie episode. I think we also get introduced to Snips and Snails in this episode. So we get to meet 3 frequently recurring characters and eventual main character for Trixie. I mean, I call her main character for the last season or 2. That's something. I'm just gonna get straight into how are the main 6 treated? They're all treated fine. Twilight is a little bit too passive, and the other 5, other than Fluttershy and Pinkie, who basically don't say anything or show up, are just their hatred for boasting is dialed up, despite the fact that Rainbow and Applejack are heavily boisterous in future episodes. So it's a bit hypocritical, which is a mild complaint, but Trixie has great characterization immediately. Snips and Snails have a very wholesome relationship with her, being like sort of her protege fans type of deal. Is the conflict sensible? Not really, because everyone just starts harassing Trixie, which causes her to be way more negative than she might have otherwise been. And then Snips and Snails just sort of use the power of dumb to instigate the whole Ursa Minor thing. Do character decisions make sense? Again, with some slight hypocrisy from some of the main 6. Twilight's weirdly passiveness is a bit strange, but she's also never had friends before, and this is still early on in the season, so she's probably just a little bit nervous about getting out there and doing things, especially after she just heard all of her friends be like, ew, boasting. So it's not that bad. Snips and Snails' decision is nonsense, but they're both portrayed as extremely dumb, even though I know for a fact Snips is not. Nope, Snails. Snails is not. Snips is. Snips is definitely a dumbus. The way that Trixie handles the Ursa Minor appearing is incredibly good characterization for her, showing that she is not afraid to stand up to threats that oppose both her and others. And Twilight's characterization towards the end of the episode is really nice, though the fact that there's no attempt at reconciliation with Trixie is a little bit unfortunate. They didn't properly recognize her efforts to be better through her attempts to help save the town. Strong emotions are good music, not really on both fronts. Yeah, I can't think of anything crazy. So yeah, that's number 12. Moving on to number 11. Number 11 is our little old Feelin' Pinkie Keen, our first Pinkie episode of season 1, and one that is only slightly inferior to the other one. This episode is a nothing burger when it comes to plot, but is one of the funniest episodes of season 1, if not the funniest episode of season 1 specifically. How are the main 6 treated? Twilight is characterized as a bit more manic and aggressive compared to the passivity of our last ranking, whereas Pinkie is just sort of going full cartoon nonsense mode, and Applejack is just sort of here for no reason. And Fluttershy is also just sort of here for no reason. Neither of them really do anything to help the plot. Fluttershy's entire existence in this episode is to facilitate a B plot for the end of the episode because they didn't know how to actually run the rest of the episode. The biggest crime in this episode is Twilight's absolute glue-eating behavior. Just completely inept when it comes to actually utilizing her skill set to help resolve a conflict. Girl has teleportation, telekinesis, so many different ways. She literally learned a create spell, I'm pretty sure, in the mustache episode. In this episode? Yeah, in this episode, she was literally working on transmogrifying things, and yet here she is forgetting she can do any of that and almost dying because she jumped off a flippin' rock. But that's my only complaint for this episode. The rest of the episode is extremely funny and interesting. Dealing with the whole Pinkie sense thing is pretty funny, and the way that Pinkie categorizes it helps display her intelligence. Spike is treated fine. Is the conflict sensible? Twilight having to forcibly learn everything she can about Pinkie is not necessarily the most sensible thing, but it is really funny, and they are just doing the thing where they dial up a trait to 11 to make an episode happen, so it's fine. Characters' decisions make sense. For everyone but Twilight, sure. Although Applejack doesn't have any purpose in the episode, so I don't know why she's here, but everyone else, sure. It's fine. Strong emotions are good music, like, no on both fronts, unfortunately. And I think this is going to be another short one. That is number 11, Feeling Pinky Keen. I can't really go too much into it because it's just a funny episode. It's hard to talk about specifically what's funny about it. It's a lot of just the character writing and quips and jokes and visual gags, just every facet of it. So yeah, number 11, Feeling Pinky Keen. On to number 10. We have reached the top 10. Rounding out our number 10 spot is The Cutie Mark Chronicles, the backstory episode, the backstory anthology. It goes into every one of the main six's characteristics, what led them to become who they are. And while it doesn't go into great detail, it's still good. And so how are the main six treated? I mean, the episode treats them fine, but the fact that all of these children were allowed to just do some crazy BS without any parental supervision is, oh my god. Even my childhood, I guess that's technically what I was allowed to do. I was allowed to just sort of run around the local area. But for specifically Applejack and Rarity, why were they just allowed to go on massive long distance journeys? Rarity even they both went multiple days away without any supervision, and no one bat an eye to any of it. At least Twilight was still in her home city. Rainbow Dash was in her home city. Fluttershy was also right next to her home city, even though she did almost fall to her death, and she should have definitely had some supervision, but whatever. And Pinky was just at home. So it's like, it's complicated, but they're treated mostly fine. Is the conflict sensible? There is no conflict, actually. So what's more important is just how good are the backstories, I guess. And they're all fine. They all make sense. Is there any of them that kind of irk me? I don't think so. I mean, Fluttershy's irks me a little bit because of how very easily and how she probably should have just straight up died, but didn't. Do character decisions make sense? Yeah, for the most part. Pinky's is probably the most nonsensical because she just sort of sees this pretty thing and is like, I now believe in the power of party and joy, which might just go to see how bad her life was, or at least how depressing it was. Applejack's decision making is weird because we don't really understand why she made the decision she did. I've seen people theorize about it, but no, there is no actual answer. She's just like, so I decided to find who I am. And those are like, okay, where's Apple Bloom? Where's your parents? What's going on with that whole situation? That's kind of an important part of your backstory. Whatever. Yeah, I can't think of anything really negative to say about this episode, to be honest. The worst thing is probably just Pinky's home life and Fluttershy's near-death experience, but those aren't things that shouldn't have happened. They're just sad things that did happen. So yeah, that was number 10, Cutie Mark Chronicles. On to number 9. Coming in at number 9 is a bit of a shocker and upset placement, and one that I'm not happy about, but after consulting my criteria, it just feels correct. Suited for Success, taken out of one of its top spots, no longer in the top 5. I've reduced it from an 8 out of 10 down to a 6 out of 10 for the critical list because of the 4 criteria I listed. So how are the main 6 treated? Rarity is immaculate, but the other 5 are complete dumpster fires. And as they was pointing out in the comments, the other main 5 are caricatures of actual customers in this type of field, but because we know all this happens legitimately due to episode 1, we know that the events of the song where they act like that is canon and is happening in the series. That means they are just being piles of dirt, and they should not get away with that. The only reason this isn't down with Bridal Gossip and Ticketmaster, which also butchered most of the main 6, is because of how flawless Rarity is in this episode. The worst thing you can say about her is she's being too generous and too nice. Like, that's it. Her biggest flaw is a positive trait. That's insane. Is the conflict sensible? Based on the characterization of the other main 5, not really, but every action, well, I guess I'll just go to that. Do character decisions make sense? Every action Rarity takes makes perfect sense for her character. She volunteers herself to work on a bunch of stuff for her friends because she loves it and she wants them to be happy. She wants them to look good. She wants only the best for all of them. And while there's a little hint of selfishness in there for not wanting to show up people underdressed, you know it comes from a place of caring and love. And when it comes to strong emotions or good music, it has both. Rarity just going through the motions of trying to be as happy as possible, trying to stay positive and help her friends be as happy as possible by giving them exactly what she thinks they deserve, all while singing a song that is easily in my top 10 for the entire series. It's so good. Everything about this episode just mixes so well, and if they treated the main 6 outside of Rarity better, this would have been a 9 or 10 out of 10, but they just had to destroy the others to build up Rarity to such a good extent. And the only reason this isn't down by the Sonic Rainboom is because I think Rarity is treated better than Rainbow was treated in her episode. So yeah, that's the disappointing number 9, and we'll move into number 8. Coming in at number 8 is our most recent episode, The Best Night Ever. This episode is a bit strange, as again, there isn't really that much of a conflict. It's mostly just the consequences of their own actions, on top of the fact that Spike gets treated so horribly. So how are the main 6 treated? They have all of their weirdest and worst traits dialed up to 11, except for Twilight, who just doesn't really do anything despite being the titular titular character. Yeah, now that I think about it, Twilight doesn't really do anything. I don't think she has any lines after her initial conversation with Celestia upon arriving to the party. She just sort of is there. Obviously, she has lines at the end, but I just meant for the actual party itself. I'm pretty sure once she meets with Celestia and says a few words, she just remains silent, and we only see her reactions to various things. Most of the other main six are just having their traits amplified. Applejack, for some reason, is having her greed amplified, which she was never shown to be very greedy in the first place, so I'm not sure why that's the case. She's also desperate, but everyone is desperate. Rainbow has her pride and arrogance dialed up. Fluttershy has her need for validation dialed up, which they all have, so that's not that surprising. And Rarity has her own, I guess, would it still be pride and arrogance, or would it be her sense of self-worth or something like that? Regardless, it's not great. Is the conflict sensible? So yeah, again, there isn't really a conflict, so let's go more into, do the plans they come up with make sense? Twilight's plan is to just be the one shaking people's hands instead, which is funny, but not really a logical decision. If she was trying to rush through it, you would think she would work together with Celestia, but Celestia goes full mannequin mode after that point, so there's nothing really going on there. Rainbow's plan could have worked if it wasn't for interference, but probably shouldn't have worked because, man, that's one of the tropiest things in the book. Pinky's plan was nonsense, but she used her cosmic eldritch powers to make it start to come to fruition, only to, end the party with her shenanigans. So again, not great. Fluttershy's plan got more and more violent, despite the fact that she's supposed to be kindness, which is hilarious, but also very concerning. I guess that's what they say when you have the same sensation to hug something as you do to kill it, basically. Like, we don't understand what to do with our affections, so we just want to squeeze things until they pop. Rarity just continuing to do the same thing that didn't work is pretty nonsensical. And Applejack starting to harass people is also nonsensical. And Rainbow Dash just assaulting people was also nonsensical. So yeah, no, the quote-unquote conflict, the problem-solving skills of the episode was not very sensical. Do character decisions make sense? Also not really. And the more I'm going into this, I'm like, should I rate this lower? I'm starting to feel like I should maybe rate this lower. Strong emotions are good music. There's multiple songs which are all fine, and there's plenty of not good but strong emotions on display. And the way Spike is treated is also abysmal. Man, I can't think of like anything really good to say about this episode up until like the last minute. It's entertaining, certainly, but up until the last minute, every character is just a pile of dirt. Ah, crap. I'm so far into this now, I don't want to have to re-record all my lines for all the previous rankings, so I'm just gonna slot this from 8th all the way down to 17, pushing Call of the Cutie to 15, Sonic Rainboom to 14, Stairmaster to 13, Griffin Brush Off to 12, Ghostbusters to 11, Feeling Pinky Keen to 10, Cutie Mark Chronicles to 9, and Suitor for Success to 8, with all the other ones being pushed down. So yeah, my bad. That's unfortunate. I should have thought more about that preemptively before getting into all the recording. But yeah, there's just so much wrong with how the characters are, like, they're just having huge breakdowns, which I guess isn't a flaw with the characters themselves, but the conflict is so nonsense. Their decision making is nonsense because of the mental breakdown. I guess that does count for strong emotions, but they're not great emotions. They don't like make us feel anything. They're just like, oh, well, that's happening, I guess. Yeah, I'm gonna have to move this down to a 5 out of 10, slotting it at number 17 and just pushing everything in the opposite directions. So yeah, that was originally number 8, but now number 17. Best night ever. My bad there. I'll include the full list at the end with the corrected numbers, so you don't have to worry about that. Coming in at number 7 is A Bird in the Hoof. Oh, this is such a nice episode. It's not like a Celestia focused episode, but we get a prominent Celestia role in the episode. And it's a Fluttershy focused episode where it's mostly just Fluttershy alone instead of having to deal with the CMC or Rainbow or any other characters. And man, it's just really enjoyable. How are the main 6 treated? Twilight is again overly manic, but it's because Celestia's involved, so it's also makes sense a little bit. The others are all just sort of hanging out. Rarity's a bit overly touchy at the party because she decided to wear her Grand Galloping Gala gown for some reason, because why not? Applejack is a bit overly tense, and Pinky just is going all in and theoretically offending Celestia, but Celestia just enjoys it, but everyone else freaks out. So yeah, of the main 6, Twilight's a bit overly tuned, but Fluttershy is going real hard and doing a really good job. The way she behaves when she's like failing is done in a much more cutesy manner than in Best Night Ever, where she just sort of goes manic crazy mode. And this one is a lot more just, I'm upset my plan didn't work, which is a lot more adorable and less conflicting with her general personality and character. Is the conflict sensible? Oh yeah, absolutely. This is one of the most logical episodes I've seen from this show. Celestia is taking care of a bird. Fluttershy notices the bird looks sick. Fluttershy doesn't understand what type of bird it is, but knows it looks unhealthy and she wants to take care of it. Celestia tries to talk about it, but she gets pulled away because of royal duties, which again, those come out of nowhere, but Celestia already, we know, is incredibly busy. So then Fluttershy takes the animal home to take care of it. Makes so much sense. And then she tries everything she knows of, every type of remedy that she can think of to try and help. It all fails. Good, solid, good conflict. Does character decision make sense? I think I already touched on that a bit, but yeah, every decision made by Fluttershy makes sense. Twilight's decision decisions, however, not nearly as good. She loves to just keep things from Celestia, despite the fact that Celestia at every single possible avenue has just shown herself to be not only kind, sweet, and understanding, but also merciful as heck. Like, all of the punishments we've seen for her, as I talked about in that episode, were all very tame and reasonable, if not straight up merciful. So it doesn't really make sense that Twilight is this high-strung about it. But Twilight tends to get overzealous when it comes to Celestia, so we can kind of understand it. So her decisions do make sense in reflection for her character when Celestia is involved, but they don't make sense from a straight-up sensical point of view. Strong emotions are good music. This has one of Fluttershy's most emotional moments at the end of the episode, so that's a very good strong emotion. I said in the episode that it can get me to tear up even now. There is no music, unfortunately, and I think that's everything. That is A Bird in the Hoof, coming in at number 7. Coming up next, number 6. Coming in at number 6 is an episode that I forgot existed, and even right now, still struggle to remember, as it is apparently just really forgettable. But I remember enough to remember that it was pretty good, and it is Green Isn't Your Color, a weird Fluttershy rarity episode dealing with fashion. I'm just gonna get right into it. How are the main 6 treated? Outside of Fluttershy, Rarity, and Twilight, I don't think the other 3 make an appearance other than just cameos. So Twilight is just sort of trying to be the voice of reason, Rarity is being very unnecessarily pushy, and Fluttershy is a doormat. But we get some cute relationship stuff between Rarity and Fluttershy in the very beginning where we get to see them at the spa, so that's nice. They're treated fine. Fluttershy and Rarity aren't the best, but everything else is going fine. Honestly, none of them are at their peak. They're all just okay. None of them are insulting. Is the conflict sensible? The conflict is not really sensible. It gets solved instantly the second Rarity is allowed to talk with Fluttershy, because she's no longer being fear-mongered into, oh, you can't tell each other the truth because you'll upset one another, when in actuality they just were like, hey, we don't want to do this anymore, and then they instantly resolved it with no conflict. Yeah, the conflict is really dumb. It's literally just a, hey, we should talk to each other and solve this problem. Nah, everyone says it's a bad idea. Oh right, Pinky is in this episode and she's an idiot. She just does the Pinky promise thing over and over and over again, but in the worst way possible. So yeah, Pinky's not treated very well either. Character decisions that make sense. Pinky's are all over the place. Twilight just accepting what Pinky is saying is, I guess, character development, taking her seriously, but this is not the situation where she needs to be doing that. And Rarity and Fluttershy almost makes sense, but because the conflict is solved instantly the second they talk, tells me that they were just being too stupid. But this episode was weirdly enjoyable for the fact that I did not remember it even a little bit. It delves really well into Fluttershy and Rarity's relationship, which we don't get a lot of if I'm remembering the entire series correctly. We learned about the Pinky promise, which is nice. And yeah, even remembering the episode finally, there's just not a lot to say about it. It's just a nice enough episode. It has its flaws for sure, but I can't think of anything egregious. Most of the stuff is just minor. So yeah, that'll sit there at number 6. Green Isn't Your Color. On to our top 5. Our top 5 for season 1. Coming in at number 5 is Party of One. Also near the end of the season, but Pinkie Pie's titular episode is definitely good. As for how are the main 6 treated, everyone's actually treated pretty well. The way all of the main 6 try to lie to Pinkie makes sense for their characters, and it makes sense that none of them are good at it because they don't like lying to their friend. Pinkie's characterization of the whole thing is mainly focusing on her own slow descent into madness, and it's handled better than their insanity in The Best Night Ever, whereas that was going off of their previous delusion set up in episode 3. The setup for Pinkie's fall is just in the same episode, so it feels a lot less clunky. Is the conflict sensible? Abso-flippin'-lutely. This is one of the most cohesive plots in season 1 alongside Bird in the Hoof, where Pinkie is just like, hey, we had a fun time at this birthday party for my gummy, my little gum, and wants to hang out with everyone again the next day, which is a little oppressive, obsessive, whatever you want to call it, where she's being a bit overbearing, that's the right word. And the others are all making their excuses because they have a different idea, because Pinkie is so excited to just be like, I want to go hang out with everyone again, I'm having so much fun with them, oh, I love my friends, that she just forgets her own birthday party. So the rest of the main 6 are planning her birthday party, having a nice surprise one for her, when Pinkie's like, hey, I want to throw another party. They're like, wait, what? Today? Like, today? Because they're so confused, like, Pinkie, did you forget your own birthday? And yeah, no, she did. That was pointed out to me in the comments how sad it is that she forgot not only her own birthday, but her sister's birthday as well. But of course, that wasn't canon yet, obviously. Do character decisions make sense? Absolutely. Everyone's character decisions are on point. Pinkie does obviously get a bit excessive in her interpretations of things, but that's part of her character and part of the delve into her psyche. Strong emotions, good music. There's a fun jingle that she sings at the beginning for her gummy birthday party invitation, which I don't consider good, but it's entertaining. But the emotions are not where I want them to be, but still really tense. It's not quite the heartstring tugging, tearful type of deal, and it's not anything triumphant or super funny or deep, but it's just tense and you're worried the entire time. It makes for a good episode, at the very least. But yeah, that's Party of One rounding out number 5. Moving on to number 4. Coming in at number 4 is Friendship is Magic Part 1. Yep, we're just getting to the very first 2 episodes. And Part 1 of those episodes is slightly weaker than Part 2, as Part 1 is mostly just setting up everything. It's giving us all of our initial characterizations of everyone, setting up the conflict, doing everything we needed it to do. There's not really a lot of negative things I have to say about Part 1, but there's also not a lot of things that I have to say about it in general, because it's mostly just a setup. How are the main 6 treated? Fine. Applejack is definitely not the way she's gonna be in the future, so she's behaving a bit weird, but otherwise it's fine. Rainbow Dash is being a bit more talkative than she usually is. Pinky also talks a lot more than she usually does, and she already talks a lot. Rarity is characterized really, really well. Fluttershy is characterized not exactly how you expect her to be in the future. She sort of becomes way more talkative almost immediately. Is the conflict sensible? There is no conflict because the conflict is set up at the end of the episode to set up Part 2. So, sure, everything makes sense. We're told of an ancient prophecy about a thing, and then the prophecy happens. Oh no, get ready for Part 2. Character decisions make sense. Yeah, I mean, Pinky breaking into Twilight's house randomly doesn't necessarily make sense, but sure, we understand that she's going to be doing that now. Strong emotions are good music. I don't think Giggle at the Ghosties is in Part 1, so that doesn't matter, and there's no real emotion yet, so again, not much. Honestly, there's not a lot to say about Part 1. It's just an all-around solid episode that gets done what you want to get done. One last thing I did want to mention is, again, we got the first major antagonist in the series shown, which is Nightmare Moon, and while she might be the least actually relevant of the antagonists, as she appears only a handful of times and she's rarely in direct confrontation, most of the time beating her is just a mental battle rather than an actual physical one compared to other villains. But yeah, we get her, so that's fun. And we're just gonna move on to number 3. Pulling up the bronze medal is not Friendship is Magic Part 2, it is Winter Wrap-Up. As I decided, all of these ones at the top 4 are all 8 out of 10s for me, so I just sort of ranked them based on which one I thought was more solid. And while Friendship is Magic Part 1 is solid, it doesn't really have anything else going for it, whereas Winter Wrap-Up has a lot more going for it. How are the main 6 treated? Everyone is treated really well. I can't think of a single thing that goes wrong with any of the main 6 in their characterization. Rarity does her perfectionism. Fluttershy is the only one who does her job correctly because she's just super competent and kind to the animals. Rainbow Dash fails horribly, trying to be impressive. Applejack technically does an okay job, but ends up ruining it somehow. I don't actually remember how. Pinky technically does her job, but also fails at it miserably. And Twilight is going through her entire character arc for that episode. So yeah, no, I don't have any problems with the main 6's treatment. Is the conflict sensible? It's pretty much just an internal conflict with Twilight trying to figure out where she belongs. It's handled reasonably well. Every decision she makes sense. It's a bit disappointing because she gets a bit drastic and betrays what she said at the beginning of the episode, where it's like, I'm gonna do this the right way, no matter what, and then she just uses magic anyway. But that's just a fall from grace, so it's not the worst deal. Which obviously leads into the do character decisions make sense? Yes, I already said that, I believe. Everyone's characters make pretty reasonable decisions that you would expect them to make. No real problems there. And there's actual strong emotions and good music. There's actually both in this one. Twilight has her little cry fiesta, and we get the Winter Wrap-Up song, which is an absolute bop. So yeah, I don't really have anything else to go for. This is one of the few ones that I'm pretty much almost exclusively positive about. Good job, Winter Wrap-Up. I would hope I'm mostly positive about the top 3, but knowing me, I like to be a little bit overcritical. Let's move on to number 2. Silver medal is Friendship is Magic Part 2, with only one thing in between Part 1 and Part 2, because these episodes together are just really solid and well put together. And Friendship is Magic Part 2 wins out because not only does it have a song, I'm not the biggest fan of Giggle at the Ghosties, but it's at least a song, and I don't hate it. It's not great, but I don't hate it. We get all of the main 6 at their absolute peak, displaying not only their elements, but also their personalities to the utmost degree. So how are they treated? Like I just said, they're all treated to their utmost. They are at their absolute best in this exact moment, for at least season 1. They honestly might be at their best in most of the series, for most of them. Like, I don't think Pinky's ever gonna get much better than this. Is the conflict sensible? We have an evil nightmare witch who controls illusions and can somehow spawn life and stuff. Granted, that life could still just be illusions, but they seem to have mass of some kind. Not entirely sure about that. Nightmare Moon's plan as well also makes sense in her actions she takes. While they don't initially seem like they make sense, I personally think they do, as Nightmare Moon always wants people to love her, so she's not going to actually just get rid of them unless she perceives them as a threat. She didn't perceive any of them as a threat. Heck, I don't even think she would get rid of them. The only person I think she would ever get rid of is Celestia and any of the other villains across the world that she doesn't want to have to deal with. But for most of the regular pony folk, I don't think she actually cares. Do character decisions make sense? Yeah, I was going over Nightmare Moon's, but the main 6 are just like, alright, We need to know how to stop this conflict. Let's find this special book that I used to research. Oh, cool, we found it. Oh, cool, we now have good information. All right, let's go to this location where the information says to go so we can accomplish our goal. It's like, yeah, how do we solve this problem? Like this. How do we solve this problem? Like this. Every time they encounter something, they make pretty decent decisions while also displaying their traits in said decision. So it's all really good. Strong emotions or good music. Again, there's music, but it's not necessarily great, so it's just a neutral. And there aren't really strong emotions if I'm being real. No. So at the very end, when Luna and Celestia reunite, that is some very powerful emotion going on right there. Similarly, can bring a tear to my eye if I'm in the right headspace for it. But yeah, that's pretty much all of Friendship is Magic Part 2. Really, really solid all around. Is there even anything I could say that's negative about it? If I would, it would be the fact that Twilight literally is reading from the book that she needs at the beginning of the episode and then forgets that she's read it, saying like, oh, I've never seen what the elements look like, even though she was reading the book where the elements are in. I guess she could have gotten to that point, but no, she had to have, because she's reading the story to us in the beginning, and the story in the beginning tells us about the elements and shows us a page that they're all on. So yeah, it's just a weird continuity thing, but other than that, it's just a good episode setting up everything we need. That was number 2, and now for what most people probably wouldn't have picked for my number 1, and God knows I wouldn't want to pick this for my number 1. Hooray, it's the Showstoppers, the flipping CMC episode. Alright, as much as I like to whine about this episode, this is one of the few episodes of this series that I could not find really any flaw with. And the only reason it lost 2 points off of my original ranking was because of how much I personally hate it, and because of... Nah, you know what? I don't even think I have a good reason. I think for this list, we'll consider it a 9 out of 10 and be the only 9 out of 10 for season 1. An episode cannot be a 10 out of 10 unless it is as well written and have as little flaws as this one, while also having the extremely deep emotional connection and the extremely good music to go with it. I expect there to be less than like 5 10 out of 10s in the entire series. I do not expect it to be very much more than that. If it is, I'm going to be genuinely surprised. That being said, we might get our first 10 out of 10 in season 2, as there is an episode in that season I really like, and as long as my in-depth look into it doesn't go poorly, who knows. I'm getting off topic though. So how are the main 6 treated? Main 6 aren't in this one other than Applejack, who is just sort of weird. They're not bad or mischaracterized or anything, they're just weird. So how are the CMC treated? They're all treated phenomenally. We actually get to see all of their personalities shine, their interests, what they're good at, their goals, everything about them is just very condensedly told to us in a mostly show not tell manner, which is rare for a lot of TV shows nowadays. Is the conflict sensible? There isn't really a conflict, it's just they're getting ready for a talent show. So how does that go? Well, they all decide that they don't want to do what they are good at and instead want to do what they think is going to be fun. For Sweetie Belle, it's being like her big sister. For Scootaloo, she just thinks it'll be fun to sing a rock ballad. And Apple Bloom, she didn't really get to choose anything. She was just stuck with whatever was left over. But she liked the idea of doing the set design stuff, which is probably the most in line with her character being a carpentry type deal. Do the character decisions make sense? Pretty much, yeah. Outside of the 3 of them deciding to not do what they're good at and instead do what they want to do, which isn't something that doesn't make sense. That is a very sensible and reasonable decision. They don't care if they're good at it, they just want to do what they want to do. It's just the ultimate freedom. Strong emotions are good music. God, there's no music. There is not good music. Don't even argue with me on this. I'll fight you. I promise. Strong emotions though, also not really. This episode, I'm tempted to keep it out of 9 just because of not having the emotions or music. But I said that I would weigh those parts of the criteria the least, so I don't know if I should knock off an entire point for not having those. I'll let you guys decide if you want it to be a 9 or an 8. I think I'm going to give it the 9 because it does feel weird to not even have a 9 out of 10 in season 1, and I'm struggling just to even think of a criticism to give it that's not just my personal hatred of this episode, because this is just one of the most well-written episodes of a show I've seen in a while. It's just very well condensed. So yeah, that is my number 1 for the objective list. We're going to move on to the subjective list, which is going to have a lot less analysis and a lot more of me just ranting for no reason about random nonsense. Probably a lot shorter as well, I imagine. I hope. Oh God, I hope. I also expect the subjective list to be decently different than the objective one. There's going to be definitely some similar ones in similar positions, but yeah, get ready. All right, let's get right into this. My personal 26th slot and the worst episode of season 1 is the Showstoppers. Surprising probably no one if you've watched the rest of the series. I just can't stand this episode. Everything leading up to the talent show is just sort of fine, whatever, middling, but the talent show is so egregiously bad and cringe-inducing that I just can't. I have to skip this episode on personal watch-throughs. I don't have anything else really against this episode. That is just how much I viscerally hate that specific section. Moving on to number 25. Number 25, which is probably also not a surprise, is Look Before You Sleep, which bottomed the other list because this episode is just an absolute train wreck in how it handles Applejack and Rarity, and Twilight goes through so much unnecessary suffering despite her trying to have a good time. Although Spike was also written out of the episode arbitrarily, which is also an annoying thing. The sequence of events are all nonsense. Everyone loses the ability to be reasonable, and that is just an annoying concept for an episode, and I don't really like it, so it's going down here. Next up for number 24 is Ticketmaster. A lot of these bottom ones are going to be somewhat familiar because as much as I hate them personally, they're also just from a critical perspective not good. Turns out that like butchering all of your main characters' personalities and egos and everything and just not representing them in a proper light, especially in the episode directly after the premiere where we see them acting the complete opposite, yeah, it's really not good. I hate it. Bothers the shit out of me. Torturing Twilight isn't fun, just like torturing Spike isn't fun. It's why most people don't like the torture Squidward episodes from SpongeBob. It's just not fun to watch someone you like getting obliterated by everyone else. I think that's about it. Moving on. Coming in at number 23 is Applebuck season. For very similar reasons. Watching Applejack just be a complete and utter stubborn jerkwad is annoying. Like, we understand that she has a stubborn personality, but come on. This is unreal. She doesn't even take the help or advice of her family members who are just as experienced and knowledgeable about the amount of work it takes to work on the farm. Absolutely unhinged behavior, on top of the fact that none of the main six actually pay attention to the fact that Applejack is behaving this way and feeling this way and not doing anything to interfere for way too long. Like, it takes multiple days, as I talked about in the episode, for anyone to actually do anything to help Applejack. But yeah, all of that's just really annoying, so it's going to be down here at number 23. On to 22. Real quickly interjecting here, as during the editing process, I realized I forgot to talk about the Applebuck season headcanon from the objective list that I said I was going to talk about in this objective list, and I just didn't. So again, my headcanon for Twilight using so much magic in Applebucking season is because in Ticketmaster, when she accidentally teleported with her and Spike and hurt him, she wants to practice teleporting a lot more so she doesn't do it ever again. That's my headcanon, and it makes the episode a lot better, but I don't think it makes it a huge point increase better. But yeah, forgot about that. Moving on. Notice how this is going a lot faster now that I'm not having to try and logically explain all my reasoning. So yeah, coming in at 22 for me is Fall Weather Friends, for very similar reasons to the previous episodes. Applejack and Rainbow Dash are just complete and utter jerkwads, especially Rainbow Dash, because when Twilight points out to Applejack that, oh, you just tripped on a stump, Applejack was like, oh, whoops, okay, sorry about that, I shouldn't have jumped to conclusions. She does the same thing to Rainbow, and Rainbow's just like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, and then Twilight leaves, and Rainbow's like, yeah, like, I'd actually believe that. Holy hell. Rainbow's supposed to be the element of loyalty, but she just immediately distrusts her friend, and assumes the worst in her other friend. This is like inexcusable levels of BS coming from Rainbow. I cannot stand it. On top of the fact that they literally cheat repeatedly in a public contest. It's no longer just a contest between the two of them. They're in an actual race event from Ponyville, and they just cheat, and Pinky helps them cheat. What the hell are they doing in this episode? Anyway, yeah, that's number 22. On to number 21. Coming in at 21 is Swarm of the Century, and I cannot properly tell you why. I just really don't like this episode. This episode and the Breezy episode just irk me for reasons I can't properly understand. Like, I don't find any of the characters that annoying, other than I find their decisions and how the plot works out a little bit annoying, but something about the Parasprites and the Breezies, just, I can't stand them. I could not explain it. I'm sorry. I straight up don't know why. We're just gonna move on to 20. I'm really sorry. I have no idea why, but whenever I watch this episode or look at this episode, I just get a visceral reaction. You're welcome to help try and guess why. Maybe it'll trigger something in my memory that'll help me understand, but yeah, I got nothing. Coming in at number 20 is Over a Barrel. It's one of those serious episodes that they don't take very seriously. Yeah, this episode's down here almost entirely because this is an extremely serious topic that they just flub horribly. Like, I enjoyed Little Strongheart and the rest of her family, and I like Brayburn and some of the townsfolk. Although I think the Sheriff Star is a bit too serious and judgmental and obnoxious. But yeah, the way Rainbow Dash and Applejack are treated, once again, is absolutely unforgivable. Like, why are they this stupid? It makes no sense. All right, well, we got them together so that they can talk it out. We're now going to proceed to talk over them the entire time and start a race war, because why not? Flippin' stupid. Moving on. Coming in at 19 is Sonic Rainboom. This one is here almost entirely because of how annoying I find the whole Sonic Rainboom continuity, as well as the butchering of Rarity's character. How they managed to make her do a full 180 that fast and instantaneously just baffles my entire mind. I do enjoy the world building of this episode at the very least, as we get to see a lot more of Clownsdale and everything, but yeah, I got nothing else. This is just not a great one. Alright, starting with this one, number 18, we've left the I really don't like it or I am not fond of it episodes. We have now reached the I am neutral towards it episodes. And so for 18, it's a dog and pony show, and I'm mostly neutral towards this one because while they don't treat a whole kidnapping very seriously, Rarity is a baller the entire time, and I also get annoyed at them wasting all of our time with the Spike fantasy. So yeah, it's a little bit of good, a little bit of bad. Moving on. Coming in at 17 is Owl's Well That Ends Well. This episode is here because it's a nothing sandwich. There's nothing really that atrocious and there's nothing really that good. It's just an episode that happens, stuff like I think I said it in the objective review. It is an episode where events take place. That's it. That's all there is to say about this episode. Honestly, I could rate it lower, but I don't have anything that heinous to say about it other than it's boring, which isn't a critique of the actual characters or episode. Honestly, this isn't even related to critique. This is just related to my feelings about it. My feelings are non-existent. This is a nothing burger episode, so it gets no up or down. It's just here. Let's just move on. Coming in at number 16 is Dragon Shy. I think I have mildly... No, this is still neutral. I'm still neutral. I was gonna say mildly positive, but no, it's mostly neutral. The Fluttershy big moment at the end is mildly cringe, if I'm being honest, but the rest of the episode is relatively neutral. I don't like how Rainbow Dash does things, but I also find Applejack is on the ball and is way better than other episodes rated lower. Yeah, it's just a lot of good, a lot of bad. Their dealing with the dragon is stupid and all that other stuff. Honestly, it's just really hard to talk about the ones where I'm neutral because it's very much just a some good, some bad, nothing sandwich. Coming in at number 15 is Stairmaster, which honestly this could be lower because of the CMC, but it's mostly higher because of Fluttershy absolutely rocking it. Everything other than like the Fluttershy moment at the end is just sort of a nothing episode, with Sweetie Belle's little ditty being mildly entertaining. But yeah, it's more positives than negatives, so we're starting to reach the parts where I'm getting positive. I think next episode is the start of the positive feeling episodes. Coming in at 14 is Call of the Cutie, and yeah, I'd say this is the start of the episodes where I start to feel positive about them. Call of the Cutie you would think I wouldn't like because it's the CMC episode, like the one where we get to meet them, but that's why I think I do like it, because this episode is like episodes 1 and 2 of the series, where it's introducing us to the main 6, but in this case it's introduced to the CMC, but it's introducing us to them at their best. Like, this is the best they will be. This is their peak, which is why I like the CMC more, because they're a lot more interesting and engaging here. They have actual decisions they're making instead of just, oh boy, what cutie mark am I gonna go for this time? Oh, I don't feel like doing that, so I'm gonna just do something really irresponsible and ruin everyone's day. Yeah, I like Twist. I wish they did more with her as like an actual friend of the main 6. I don't even know if she appears that often in future episodes. I think she gets replaced by some of the other student characters. Like, I think Pipsqueak, like Pip, he becomes way more of a popular character than Twist ever did, or anything like that. Yeah, moving on. With number 13, it's Green Isn't Your Color, an episode that I just completely forgot existed and has somehow made its way into the, I guess, center of the list. So despite my not remembering of it, it made a decent impression. It felt like it wrote most of the characters pretty well, other than Pinky and Twilight, and a lot of the jokes were pretty funny. And as kind of annoying as it was that they kept screwing up the background ponies for the models, the fact that they eventually at the end showed that they were all there means that it was also self-aware that it was doing that, which might make it worse if we're being honest. I'm not entirely sure. Regardless, the episode itself is relatively fun, and I don't have any major problems with it. It's mostly just mild annoyances, and having not remembered it, it did make a positive enough impression to reach the center of the list, so good on it, I suppose. Moving on. Coming in at number 12 for me is Griffin Brush Off. I just really like this episode after doing the deep dive. Like, I originally did not like this episode at all and would honestly skip it a few times. I did go back and watch it occasionally, but after rewatching it and doing it for the series, man, there's so much better subtext in this episode than a lot of other episodes. Pretty much every decision Pinky makes is in character and good. Rainbow Dash's behavior, as well as Twilight's, and basically everyone's, is a little bit overboard in how they treat Pinky. And I even had a comment recently from a new subscriber being like, Rainbow Dash not getting a bad friend point in this episode is crazy. And I would like to clarify that the only reason she didn't get a bad friend point and why Twilight didn't get a bad friend point in that other episode is because their bad moments weren't relevant to the plot. The whole point of the bad friend list, and I'll clarify this in season 2, is did them being a bad friend create a problem or the problem in the episode? And when I say a problem, I mean like a relevant problem, not just, oh no, this character is now slightly sad. If it's like a major sadness, then that would definitely change it, but yeah. So Griffin Brush Off, Gilda's fun. She's handled as a really good villain. I obviously don't like her that much. I like her more in her comeback later on, but for here I don't like her because she's obviously written not to be liked, but I do like her as a villain, if that makes sense. I also enjoyed Pinky being a bit more intelligent in this episode and having a better deduction skills, as well as her ability to craft things. That was all very fun to explore. Unfortunately, we don't get as much of it, but we do get a little bit of it, because like her craftsmanship is shown with like her basement and everything, or the Pinky Cave, if that's what she calls it. Yeah, a lot more to say about this episode, because I actually do kind of like this one, and I had a lot of thoughts changed on it. Coming in at number 11 is Friendship is Magic Part 1. This episode does a really good job of establishing all of the characters, and the only reason it's not rated higher is because that gets contradicted by the rest of the series so far, which definitely brings it down. Starting off with like Twilight reading a story is very good and engaging, as it sort of sets you up for what you're about to get into. I like that form of world building. As long as it doesn't drag on too long, and it doesn't for this, it actually just is very quick, like 30 to 45 seconds, just boop, boop, you got the information, good, here you go. All of the introductions of the main 6 are fun, but not necessarily accurate to what they're going to deal with. with. Pinky's is decently accurate, and Rarity's is decently accurate, but Rainbow Dash is way more energetic and hyper in that intro than she is. She's definitely a lot more like playful. I'm struggling to probably describe how I feel about it, but yeah. Rarity is shown to be a perfectionist, which is a common trait she carries for the rest of the show. As for Applejack, though, they play up her cowboy lady type deal way more than it actually ends up being a thing. She gets to keep her yeehaw for pretty much the entire series, but beyond that, she acts relatively normal. She's more of like the country bumpkin, not the yeehaw cowgirl type. Twilight's intro is relatively good because it's her at her worst, where she's trying to become a better person at that point. Fluttershy is way more quiet and meek in this part than most of the other episodes. I think the only other time she gets to be like that is during Griffin Brush Off, where she goes super silent with Gilda screaming. Pinky doing the scream and then arbitrary party is somewhat accurate, honestly, so it's not the worst. Yeah, that's about it. Moving on. Oh, right, before I forget, Spike, yeah. Spike is fine. I'm pretty neutral towards him at the first episode. Honestly, no. You know what? He's actually doing a really good job because he's shown to be way more considerate and kind, and we don't see a lot of that from him outside of like Owl's Well That Ends Well and Best Night Ever, where he's doing his best to be those things. Mostly the rest of the time, he's just either a voice of reason, a rambunctious troublemaker, or Twilight's servant. So not all of those are great, but yeah, okay. Moving on for real this time. Rounding out my number 10 is the Cutie Mark Chronicles. This is just the backstory episode. I enjoyed seeing everyone's backstory. That's pretty much it. I guess we'll just go through them. Fluttershy's is horrific, and she probably should be dead. And good lord, the amount of negligence in the pony world is absolutely horrifying. Rainbow Dash's is similar, just horrifying, but also is a catalyst and is also very impressive. The usual. Twilight's makes too much sense, but also is a little sad that she's alone at this event she's always wanted to go to, not with her brother, not with her parents, and her brother doesn't even like exist in the minds of the creators at this point. Rarities is kind of stupid, if I'm being honest. It's really lazy and dumb. Her weird magicalness activates and she gets dragged across the country to find out that she's meant to do gem stuff. Oh, but it's what's on the inside that counts, that teaches her that generosity and kindness and what's within is the best thing ever. Which, I get it. It's very funny and kind of cool in how symbolic it is that the pony who's super superficial is also the pony who properly understands that the inside matters quite a lot in this circumstance. Pinky's extremely depressing and speaks a lot about her mental state and what she went through and all of that stuff, which is really engaging and also sad to watch. And Applejack's doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me still. Like, where are her parents? Where's Apple Bloom? I've seen some theories in the comments. I have my own, but it just doesn't feel like it has a clean answer, and I don't like that. I also don't know why her finding herself made her think she needed to go to a big city. I guess that's the part of finding yourself, is you're not entirely sure what you want until you try it out. Since she was so young at the time, she didn't properly understand that she was quite literally built for the farm life. So yeah, I enjoy this episode a lot. Hits out the number 10. Moving on. Coming in at number 9 is another one that's changed quite a lot. Bridal Gossip. It's entirely here because I love Zecora that much. As much as I despise how all of the main 6 are treated, Zecora's just a goat. Love her. 100%. 10 out of 10. Not really, obviously, but really fun. I enjoy her character. And Apple Bloom gets a lot of really good development as well. It's also a really cute episode in how they draw Apple Bloom a lot of the time. Just the whittle hooves above the hat are still in my brain, living rent free. I don't got a lot to say about this one. It's pretty much all just Zecora all the time. Moving on. Coming at number 8 is Feeling Pinky Keen. And if you watched my episode on it, which not a lot of people did because I guess people didn't really like it, the episode is up here because it's just a really funny episode. Even if you don't like my rendition of the episode, go watch the actual episode. It's just funny. So much comedy. The way Pinky is done here is perfect. The way Twilight's done here is perfect. Well, Twilight is a little bit pushy and mean and insensitive, but it's Pinky. Everyone treats her that way in the early seasons. I'm not happy about it. That's another reason why I didn't give Rainbow Dash a point in the Pinky episode earlier with Griffin Brush Off, because everyone was treating Pinky that way in the early seasons. I'm not happy about it, but yeah. This episode's entirely up here just for the comedy. I don't have a lot more to say about it, and I can't really describe comedy very well, so there you go. Moving on to number 7. Coming in at 7 is Ghostbusters, which is in a similar spot to Bridal Gossip in that I like Trixie. Obviously not that much in these early seasons, but she has some of the best character development in the show, which is very fun. As for the episode itself, every character is handled okay. Twilight is a bit too meek, and the rest of the main 6 are too hypocritical, although except for Pinky and Fluttershy, who don't even get to really talk in the episode. They ruin Trixie's act. She gets mad at them. They effectively swear a vendetta. She then humiliates all of them through cheating. Snips and Snails are introduced, which is great. I love those guys as well. The whole Ursa Minor thing is very fun. fun. The way that Trixie handles it is great. I like that she stands up for everyone, despite the fact that she didn't need to, and she probably shouldn't have, especially after the way that she was treated. Yeah, again, not much more to say about it. Solid. Moving on to 6. Coming in at number 6 is A Bird in the Hoof. Entirely here because it's pretty much the only Fluttershy focal episode, and it handles her really well. We learn so much about her character, and none of it is as contradictory as a lot of other things. It's still a little weird at how she views and treats animals despite caring for them so much, which could just come from her naivety, thinking all the animals are just little stupid guys that need protection and care, even though they're all very smart. Again, this is not something that sticks around very long, as the animals start to become more of like her friends and companions rather than her pets. Outside of that, I love pretty much everything about Celestia in this episode. It is phenomenally done. Philomena's a bit too mean-spirited, but she does apologize profusely at the end and is a lot more playful and kind after being scolded, so it was an attempt at harmless fun that got a little bit too harmful, but it's fine. Everything works out in the end. Twilight is an idiot, and I pretty much despise her in this episode. So the thing is, with Twilight, in every episode in which Celestia's involved, I either hate her or I like her, because she's either the most annoying and infuriating person in the story, or she has something cute and wholesome going on with Celestia. There isn't a lot of in between. But yeah, I think that's everything. Moving on to number 5. Top 5 coming in. Coming in at number 5 is The Best Night Ever, rounding out our top 5. This episode is just really fun, and while Spike, my poor little lad, deserves so much better, the episode itself is really entertaining. All of the main 6 go through different yet in-character breakdowns, which, to be fair, those breakdowns were not really earned. They're just having delusions based off of episode 3 and what they assume will be like the greatest thing ever, delusions of grandeur specifically, I believe. And it's just fun to watch them collapse slowly and come to realize their mistakes, and Spike gets to have the nice fun, well, told you guys, we should have just hung out and had fun together. And everyone laughs and agrees. And Celestia's little twist at the end of being like, oh yeah, no, I really don't like the Grand Galloping Gala. It sucks. But, I gotta host it for all the fancy ponies. I'm glad you guys are there. They would make it really fun, even if it did get a little out of hand. So, yeah, I enjoyed pretty much all of the episode. Moving on to number 4. Coming in at number 4 is The Friendship is Magic Part 2, the second one. It is remarkably better than the first part, mainly because we just get all the payoffs after all the setup. We get to see all of the main 6 displaying their amazing talents and elements. And while obviously I didn't like the whole roll call they did for the elements beforehand, which was very not subtle and kind of ruined all of this payoff, I do still enjoy the payoff itself if I ignore that part, and I generally do. Seeing everyone at their absolute peak of their element is just an absolute delight, and I enjoy it every time I watch it. I pretty much never lose the smile on my face. Giggle at the Ghosties isn't, great, but it's at least something. It's at least a song. It gives us a hint and tease of what some of the future stuff will be in the series. I enjoy Nightmare Moon. I wish there was a little bit more of a conflict with her and that she did more than just the illusions, but after the breakdown of why I think she's doing the illusions, I still enjoy it, even if I wish it would have been dealt with a little differently. Yeah, I don't think I got much else more to go with. Let's move on to top 3. And now for the top 3, which I imagine none of you will even be remotely surprised by, because I literally said in the episodes that I covered them in that these were my favorite episodes of season 1. The order you might not know, but it really doesn't matter. They're all relatively interchangeable, so I'm not that worried about it. Number 3, though, is Party of One, Pinky's phenomenal episode dealing with her mental state and finally showing us why Pinky is the way she is. It's because she's flipping insane and is going through a mental breakdown pretty much constantly, and the only thing staving her off from complete psychosis is her friendship and throwing parties. Woo! Extremely dark character in a children's cartoon. But yeah, I love pretty much everything about this episode. Gummy is really funny, obviously. The main 6 being a bit too obtuse and noticing what's wrong with their friend is annoying, but they had relatively good reason to avoid her. It was all for the sake of wholesomeness, and while they didn't handle the situation great, they should have had one of the main 6 distract Pinky instead of all this BS. They needed to just, here, you go distract him, we'll handle all the preparations. Why did they need all 6 of them? Fluttershy and Rainbow were literally not doing anything. Yeah, that's so stupid. You could just have, Applejack call them and be like, hey, could you guys come down to the farm? I need some help. And they'll be like, oh, hey, Pinky, let's go help Applejack. And I'm pretty sure Pinky would be fine with that, and they could still get the surprise off. But yeah, I still love this episode. It's just such a good delving into her character. And we're gonna move on to number 2. Our runner-up is The Winter Wrap-Up. It's just a fun episode, man. I don't got a lot to say about it. It has a really fun song. It's super wholesome, and not a lot else to really go off of. I don't have anything bad to say about it. The worst thing I could say about it is Twilight gets really sad and then stops being sad after a few seconds. That's about it. Yeah, let's just move on to number one. I straight up don't have anything to say about it. It's just a fun episode. That's it. And the completely expected dominant winner of my subjective list is, of course, Suited for Success. The Rarity episode that just spits in the face of all the main six except for Rarity, who gets to have an honestly even better showing than her premiere, which is not something I can say for any of the other main six this season. No one else in the main six really performs better than in the first episode. But damn if Rarity didn't do it. She really did. Her kindness, generosity, understanding, consideration for her friends, everything was at a damn 10. So good. Oh my god. If I didn't have to hold back my bias, and if they didn't butcher the main six, this would have been the first 10 out of 10 of the series. But again, this isn't the critical list. I could give it a 10 out of 10 subjectively if I wanted, but this already is the best episode of season 1 for me, and I can't really think of anything else to say about it other than go watch it if you haven't. I don't know why you're on this video if you haven't watched all of season 1, but hey, watch it again if you have. I don't care. Do it. See ya. Outro. This long as heck journey has been me going over the entirety of season 1. Season 2 will be showing up sometime in the next 2 weeks, probably after 2 weeks, because it's going to be both episode 1 and 2, obviously, to cover the entirety of the premiere. Outside of that, I don't have a lot to really say. I'm going to cover the details with like the friend counter in the season 2 premiere, as well as sort of re-going over the whole point of the series in the first place. If you want an overall rating for season 1, it's probably like a 7 out of 10. It's mostly middling to not very great episodes with a couple of gemstones in there, because this was sort of their first foray. This was very much like average kids show type of deal. But season 2, oh boy, I've looked at the episode list, banger after banger after banger. There's only a handful of episodes I am neutral towards, and even less that I'm straight up negative towards. So many that I enjoy. I'm real looking forward to season 2. Hope y'all are too. See you later.